about 7:30 Monday morning. We're just out with the dogs on the moors. I say dogs because we've got 3 this morning. We've got Sky, Elsa, and Elsa the rough collie, and Trevor Munro as we call him. Trevor. It's a bit inclement. Nice and fresh though. So since the last upload, we've basically done a lot of stripping off of paint and smoothing off and filling holes and just investigating what needs changing and remachining. We've been working on the drive between the motor and the clutch, and we've taken a quick look at the clutch. I'm not sure that'll make it into this episode because there's still a few unknowns on it. We also take a quick look at the tailstock and are horrified at the condition of the quill internal taper, which is a Morse Taper 3, or was originally. Anyway, we rectify that best we can with a bit of reaming and cleaning up, and basically rebuild the tailstock. Right, well, while I'm waiting for Chris to reappear, I thought I'd take a look at the tailstock, because ultimately the bottom half of it's got to be bedded to the new profile on the lathe. So other than taking it off the bed and loading it into the back of the transit van, I've actually looked at the thing. So it would be a journey of discovery. I've just unscrewed that, which is the quill lock. Underneath, and it weighs quite a bit. Flat way, V way, they're what have got to be rebedded. Then it's a standard sort of nut and clamp arrangement. Standard in so much as it's on both of my lathes, so that means it must be common. So I've took the 2 adjuster screws off, and that should now lift away. Ta-da! Wonder how long since that's been off. Good bit of wear there. You see the witness line a bit scored up. Yeah, anyway, got to clean that off, so I'll put that down on the deck for now. I'll have a poggle about in the oh look. They were pretty spare on using hex head drives. Everything seems to be a flathead screwdriver, or majority of it. You know, the sort that you chew up as you're trying to get the bloody things apart. Cold today. Yeah. Can you see that? I've had some... I suspect that's been... somebody's tried to get that out or something. Bent over and mauled up. I'm not sure how that comes out. Oh, there you go. Now in the bottom of there, you just about make it out. There's another flathead screw, which I assume is something to do with the spindle. Well, it's not seized, but it's a bit crusty at the end. Yeah. I'll not lie, I forgot to turn the camera back on. Dope. Got it stripped down. The hardest part of it was getting the quill out. Basically, the nut on the end of that retains the handle, which is keyed on. Somebody walloped the end of the shaft and burred it over. So that was a bit of a wrestle getting that off. That one's sorting out. Needed to take the handle off, and then it's got sorry, all the way around. Take the handle off. Handle was that end eased off. All of that assembly then can come out this way. Once I'd got the quill out, which is there, and you can see the keyway that's been put in. Once the quill was out, the retaining screw, which is in there, it's got a flat which locates that. That could then unwind and come out. It was absolutely solid in there. Wouldn't rotate, wouldn't even start. I soaked it for a couple of hours with the easing fluid, which is this stuff, which was suggested to me by one of the subscribers quite a while ago, I think when I was doing the shaper. It works a treat. Just about out of me, well, the can ran out of aerosol, so it's been transferred into one of my squirty bottles. But you don't need much. But anyway, so I soaked it up with that. That enabled me then to take that pin out, that key slot thing. Also had to take out the two locking pieces, which are on the tailstock. They were solid, so they had to be soaked and come out. Yeah, so it was soaking all day, and the time I got it out, it was late night, and I forgot to put the camera on. I was expecting to see a brass bush or bronze bush in the end of the quill that this screws into. It's not, it's steel. It's all solid. Looking at the shaft, you look at the difference in the thickness of the teeth between here and here. I'd say that's about 20% worn in that centre section. It's still functioning. I'm not overly concerned. I mean, there's a bit of forward and backwards play, but it's not a precision feed, is it? It's either going in one direction or you're coming out. It's not a forward back kind of job. So I think that'll probably see me into retirement. But truth be known, if I decide that I want to do it, I'll machine a new one on the lathe once it's up and running. So the jobs are basically polish off the crap on the end of this without removing too much material. I've got to put a taper, Morse taper reamer down there. I don't know whether you can see it's pretty grim in there. So that one's cleaning out. Once that's cleaned out, I'll probably need to tweak the end of the shaft so that it still knocks out, but I've not without losing a load of throw. So yeah. So all in all, yeah, it came apart reasonably all right. I had a brief chat with Chris last night, who came round to offer his apologies for not coming up and explain why. His wife's fairly not in the best of health, having had a couple of tumbles in the last 6 months, and which left him running around after his livestock. And he's desperate to get back down here, but obviously his wife's got to take priority, as have the livestock. So yeah, he was here for about 15-20 minutes, and he was talking about how to get around the issue of, once the alignment of the spindle's sorted out, the lathe bed's re-scraped, and we've scraped the bottom of the seat that this sits on, we've then got to make sure that the alignment up, down, tilt and left, right is all set up right. And he explained at length his views on not using things like, what do you call it, shambam, which is another version of turkite, and there's another one he mentioned as well, and he said, no, I won't use the expletives he strung out in a long line, but not a big fan, I don't believe. He said they're all right as a last resort. What he was basically saying was, if we have to lift the height of this, the way to do it is basically on these, you don't do it on the underside of that, you basically machine out these, and you put something in the region of 1/8 or 1/4 inch thick gauge plate, and then you bed it to that, so you've got 4 pads, and that's what it sits on. What he was explaining was that these keys, which are what align it that way, on the larger machines he's worked on and sort of spent most of his career working on, all of these keyways, that way, basically those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 surfaces, 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, 5 surfaces, male and female side, are all scraped as a nice sliding fit. And he's saying, you know, you can spend 2 or 3 days just getting that fit just right. He said, but you're talking about maybe a tailstock that weighs 1.5 tons. Yeah, different ball game, but interesting to listen to. So yeah, next job's clean it all up and yeah, get it ready so that I can. I've got to strip off all the paint, smooth it all over, and then I might rebuild this, paint it up and rebuild it, knowing that this is the one that all the work's got to happen to. So I'll just clean this off for now. That's a lot. Bring you back when we're cleaning. Chris has been around, managed to do about an hour and a half, talk for about 2.5, but it was good to see him. He's a bit of a character. I've got no footage of him. He's getting a bit camera shy, to be honest. Hope to get some in the next few weeks. These are the 2 adjusters that sit either side for cocking over the tailstock. The slot screws. The back one wasn't too bad, but the front one's been well gnarled up, so that'll probably be a remake job at a later date, or weld it over, machine it flat, and then machine a slot in it. One or t'other. Stripping and cleaning the tailstock, and after wire wheeling the rust off the handles, they looked a right mess. So I'll give them a quick whiz round on the with some abrasive, and then re-blued them. Varying degrees of success. That one's just not taking at all. I think it's because it's oil saturated, so I'll have to come up with a better degreasing method. But the main handle, which was covered in rust to the extent you couldn't see the knurl, it's come up all right. It don't get to be green and lush without a bit of rain. It's Sunday afternoon and the sun's out, so we're stripping paint and rust and all that lot. That's the top cover off the headstock. It's had some pretty grotty bits. Anyway, it's just about ready for degreasing, and then go around and fill the casting faults, and then we'll get some primer on it. Might take this off. I think it's brass or bronze. Take that off and clean it up, and then fit it back on with some nice screws. Yeah. Anyway, right now, dog wants a walk. Joy. That's a carpet of bluebells, and the smell is fantastic just here. Not so good close to the dogs. She's just had whiff of a fox, so she's keen to see where it's gone. That's it all cleaned off with the gear speed change label off. I've degreased it. I'm just going to now get some filler and try and make that surface a bit easier to coat. There's a couple of fairly bigger blowholes and some tiny holes there. Yeah, I could just keep painting it with undercoat, but what's the point? I've got some filler. So last time I used this, I was, say, teenager, lying alongside my brother's Escort van. It was a Mark 1 Escort, and it was called Norris because it was a nail. It was not very good car, but it was his first one, and we had high hopes and did a lot of travelling in it, fishing. Too much hardener in that. Anyway, we had it harden off and then give it a light sanding over. It's filled the worst of it, and should give me a better surface to start from. As usual, most of what you put on comes off when you sand it, but it's filled in all of this. I've missed some down here, but that's the very back, and I think the paint will catch that. It's filled in the big hole there and blended in that. So I'll stick a coat of undercoat primer on and see how we look. It's nice and sunny. So these are the drive pulley guards and guides. So they fit with there's a round boss that end which goes over the clutch, and that pulley fits under it. And then the belts come around there, around the outside of these, and then onto the drive off the motor. So these 2 points here, I've got a pair of bearings at each end, and on each of them one bearing seized in the aluminium casing. So I'll just put some easing oil on it, and we'll have to do it a bit gingerly because I suspect that's quite brittle. Yeah, all the flanges which cover the outsides of the bearings, these screws came out pretty easy. So we shall see tomorrow. So split down the first of the drive belt pulleys. This one's a V and the other one's a flat. Take the back of the belts. The bearings have plenty of grease in them, but that one particularly, which I think is the inside face, is dry and crusty. So we're going to give them a rinse out and see what they look like, and then everything's got to be cleaned up. Locking ring held on with a taper pin, so crank round, drilled through, so at least resetting it should be straightforward. That's the second roller, which is running on the backs of the belt. The bearings have freed up now they've had some more oil in them, easing oil. That collar's marked up the opposite way round as the other one. Somebody's had a right go at it. So I'll take this one apart now. Just having a look at this because the shaft's turning and the pulley's turning on the shaft as well. So I'm expecting that to look, might not be, difficult to tell. What I have seen though is that it's quite a bit of a, I mean that should be locked up tight, but there's movement laterally on that bearing, so they're probably knackered. I've got to get the pin out, which means working out which end's thin and which end's thick. My guess is that's the thin end. So I'll stick it in the vise and persuade it out. That's when you start wondering, is the other end the thin one? Not easy to tell. It doesn't appear to have moved a great deal. This is a piece of kit that came up with all the straight edges from Chris's. I cleaned it up and painted it, added in some touch marks, and it's not, I didn't think I'd use it, but it's actually been really bloody handy. So you stick that in, slide it across the corner, tap that out, knowing that the pulley and everything is supported by that. Saves a bit of cocking about. Brass. Right, I need two hands. That's it apart. It doesn't appear to have been spinning on the shaft, so that's just having a thing. Just having a close look at this shaft. You see the little pop marks there, and there, and there. Methinks the shaft's a bit undersized. I can't think of any other explanation for that. So they've pop marked it and then driven the bearings over the top, but there's enough scoring on this circular scoring. I think it has been spinning, so when it goes back together it'll probably have a bit of a bearing lock on it. It's kind of standing room only now. Can't work in this cramped space. Looks like I'll have to go fishing instead. Well, I've spent an hour cleaning off the about 4 layers of paint that were on it. It's aluminium, so we're going to use an etching primer on it. And I'm brushing it on because I haven't got any facilities for spraying. But joy. Much better than it was. Whether we can get this. That was absolutely horrible down there. Well, you can see now that it's far from ideal. Oops. I'm wondering whether to keep cleaning it up and then face this down. God knows what they've had to spin round in that. I mean, I couldn't even get a Morse taper 3 into it to start off with. It was sticking out ½ an inch, and it's now virtually swallowed the whole thing just to clean it up. We'll take a bit more out. Easiest way to get the paint out. And reseat the taper pin.
this is going to be fun. So I can't get my big hands down there.
I'll show you the dilemma. That hole there has that in it, which locates into slot. And it was a bit of a wrestle getting it out. Right, we'll see what we can do. Judicious use of a pair of needle nose pliers and it started. Well, that's about as tight as it was, so we'll call that good to go. Addendum. That bit goes in first. Prat. Dope. It's all dark down there. There we go. Cleaned all these up on a wire wheel and just deburred them and did some cold bluing on them. What had happened, somebody had wound that loose, pin had dropped, they then basically pulled it up like that and this bottom piece had rotated. Yeah, well, you can see that, see the burr down the edge there, and that had scored up the barrel, which was then not wanting to do its thing. Now, I've got a feeling there's a bit of paint in the way there. Yeah. Well, that was fraught. Tiny little burr on the inside of the receiving hole, stopping the lower segment going up and down smoothly. Obviously caused, or by the looks of it, was caused when that bottom segment had been running skew with. Anyway, cleaned it all up and that locks off. I think there wants to be a washer set under there. There wasn't one on it, so I'll have to get one made up. I've got to clean up the handle and make up the handle proper. And then other than that, I think that was a dauber, so like a little inkwell, and you pull your oil out for dipping on the centres. I got a vague idea. Mr. Pete made one for an old God, if I had words I could use them. An old South Bend lathe, that's the word. Anyway, I'm not going to fit the handle on that yet because it means it it has to sit on its base, and I don't want to do that yet. But at least there's a few less bits hanging about. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, give us a thumbs up, leave us a comment. Be interested to hear what people think about the style of videos I'm shooting. So if you want to see more of a certain thing and less of another, let me know, because now's the time before I settle on a format. I'm not a great video editor. I try to shoot it all on the cuff, and I don't work from a script, as you've probably worked out. Cheers for now. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. Watch some of the backlog. There's a catalogue of videos, and there's a good series on a shaper. What I'm doing now is built on the experience and the knowledge that I gained in that and adding to it, so it's not a bad place to start. Cheers for now.